रामदास, आवाज येतोय का माझा? हॅलो. हॅलो.
हॅलो. हा सर बोला.
हा, आवाज येतोय ना? लॅपटॉपला कनेक्ट झाला ना ते?
मी मोबाईल वर आहे.
मोबाईलहून कनेक्ट केलाय का? लॅपटॉप कोणता आहे? अजून लॅपटॉप नाही दिसत.
हा, एक मिनिट. त्यांना नाही येते तुमचा आवाज.
कोणाला? लॅपटॉपला का? लॅपटॉप कनेक्टच नाही झाला.
ओके, लॅपटॉप कनेक्ट नाही झालाय का? हा, एक मिनिट.
अपनी पांच बाहुबल के द्वारा, अपने उंगलियों के हुनर के द्वारा, अपने कौशल्य के द्वारा विश्व का हृदय जीत सके, ऐसे नौजवानों का सामर्थ्य हम तैयार करना चाहते हैं।
If you want to take advantage of demographic dividend, it is necessary that we must give jobs to our young men and women. And how can you give them jobs? We can give them jobs by imparting skill education. And in order to satisfy this need, I am glad that Symbiosis has established a very unique university of its kind in our state, and that university is Symbiosis Skills and Open University.
Welcome to SSOU, Symbiosis Skills and Open University, to skill India, to build India. SSOU is India's first residential skills and open university.
Students were not looking at entering the field of skill-based education because of two important reasons. The first reason was that there was a complete lack of vertical mobility, that is from certificate courses all the way up to degree courses in skill-based education are not available today. The second important reason is that there is no social acceptability of people who have skills, who work with their hands.
Equipped with specialized skill training machinery and equipment as per industry specifications, SSOU ensures a minimum 70% of teaching is imparted through hands-on training and practicals at centers of excellence, learning factories and industry engagements. Our teaching pedagogy inculcates not only our value-based Indian ethos, but also the use of cutting-edge technologies like simulations and augmented reality.
At this first skill university of the state of Maharashtra and the first residential skill university of the country, we always try to enhance the skill development among the youth, among the students who are coming with us, and the basic purpose of that is that they are ready to be used by the industry. We have got industrial tie-ups where basically we have been trying that our course curriculum is designed as per the requirement of the industry.
The Department of Interdisciplinary Sciences provides programs in soft skills, life coping skills, leadership, entrepreneurship skills, and foreign languages. Symbiosis Skills and Open University, on a mission to build and nurture skills as one of the greatest acts of nation building. Bringing about a revolution in higher education.
Good morning all. On behalf of the Chancellor Dr. S.B. Majumdar, Pro-Chancellor Dr. Swati Majumdar, Vice Chancellor Dr. Ashwini Sharma, and Innovation Council of Symbiosis Skills and Professional University, I welcome you all to an expert talk on process of innovation development, technology readiness level, and commercialization of lab technologies and technology transfer, by Dr. Ajai Garg, who is the Senior Director in the Ministry of Electronics and IT, Government of India. The topic itself has multiple dimensions. Now, each of these things like innovation development, technology readiness level, etc., is a complete topic in itself and requires extensive discussions. To compress it all into a single talk requires an expert with profound knowledge and understanding of the subject. And ladies and gentlemen, there can be no speaker better than Dr. Ajai Garg, who brings with him more than 25 years of experience in this field. Dr. Ajai Garg is an alumnus of IIT Roorkee, where he did his BTech, IIT Kanpur, where he did his MTech and PhD, and he also worked in IIT Delhi as a senior fellow research scientist. He has been instrumental in formulation of strategy and policies in software development industry, IPR, innovation, cross-border data flow, which has become a very important aspect today, trade promotion, and so on. In his present role, he is functioning as head of department for innovation, collaboration, international collaboration, startups, and software development. He is responsible for strategic development of technology with focus on digital transformation. You all would be happy to know that Dr. Ajai Garg has traveled to more than 50 odd countries as part of international negotiations and he has been instrumental in international negotiations in fora like G20, WTO, BRICS, Shanghai Cooperation, etc. Sir, we would like to welcome you once again, and I also want to tell you that we at Symbiosis are committed to this task of innovation development, and as a testimony of our focus and commitment to this field, we have been awarded a 4-star ranking by Ministry of Education's Innovation Cell recently. So, ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Dr. Ajai Garg, who will be speaking to us today.
Thank you, Brigadier. It's a huge privilege to be actually coming on this virtual platform with this university, which is very unique of its kind, and unique in a sense that it connects the last person on earth, on the soil or in the country, to the growing aspirations as a nation what we have, and that is what connects this university. So let me thank the Chancellor, Professor Majumdar, Mrs. Swati Majumdar, the Pro-Vice Chancellor, and my good friend, the Vice Chancellor, Mr. Ashwini Sharma, whom I know for the last, how many years? Maybe 15 years or so. With this dynamic leadership and qualities that actually changes the paradigm of a system, which I have known Professor Ashwini Sharma for very, very long time. The way he transformed the e-governance ecosystem in Rajasthan when he was leading ARCOM, and the way ARCOM grew in his leadership. And then NELIT, which actually evolved as a skilling or a non-formal sector to bridge the gap between the talent requirement, which the early stage of the IT sector growth actually required. And at the time when Ashwani ji joined NELIT as its DG, many of the people, both in the government as well as in the IT industry sector, whom I know, and because I was associated with both of them, actually started believing that NELIT has lost its relevance in the present paradigm where the IT sector has actually matured out. But I don't know what he did and what he did not do. But Dr. Sharma actually transformed NELIT, brought the new paradigm into the NELIT ecosystem, and in turn grew it many folds in a very, because for an institute, 4 to 5 years is a very small time. And actually it grew many fold during his leadership. So I think you have got the right set of people to lead this very innovative initiative which Professor Majumdar and Ms. Swati Majumdar has taken, and actually chosen a right leader as a Vice Chancellor. So having said this, let me break my talk into 4 things. What is actually changing and why skilling has become important? Innovation will be the key driver of the economy. What is actually happening in the world or the global economic ecosystem. The second is why you need innovation, which is of a model which is very different from what is being adopted either in the Silicon Valley or best examples of Israel or wherever you take. You can't actually take the same models and replicate them in India. That is the second important thing. The third, what I will be touching upon is that what is expected from the educational systems, from the skilling systems, which will actually bring all this change and will bring all what is required into this. So these are the three broad topics which I will be covering in my talk. So to start with, what is actually happening in the global ecosystem as an economy? First of all, let's take the present time, why we are meeting virtually and why I do not have the privilege and an honor to be actually sitting in Pune in your campus, and I'm part of these discussions, and actually we all are associated virtually. The biggest crisis which the mankind has faced, I think not only in our lives, but for the past 300 to 400 years, is the present pandemic. The COVID-19 has actually changed the way we think, the way we work, the way we interact, and the way many of the traditional systems which are part of the basic ethos of mankind have changed. The way the education is delivered is now different. The way we work, now work from home has become a new normal. Healthcare has become important not only for increasing the life expectancy of mankind, but for its basic survival. Today, health tech has become central to our basic survival. And the pandemic has actually changed. The economies have shrunk. They need to get back to their resilient mode in a very, very fast way, to the way the aspirations of the 7.5 billion global population has actually developed in the information age of today. Because let's understand, the present pandemic is part of the information age. Is in the era when everyone and anyone is connected to all and every information that is available. The connected world and many of our social media platforms brings every information without even understanding the implications of it to everyone around globally. And that actually brings a lot of expectations and aspirations from the mankind. At the same time, when this pandemic has unfolded itself in the last 2 years, there was a change in which the technology was taking the economy forward or to a different route. There was an evolution of what we call as Industry 4.0. The Industry 4.0, what it does differently from the earlier eras is that it brings automation, it brings intelligence into all sectors of economy, which the machine will be doing instead of the basic intelligence of mankind. The way agriculture will be, the way logistics will be, the way education will be, the way healthcare will be, or you talk about any sector of economy, it will be very different the way we thought of it 5 years back because of the Industry 4.0. Now, in every aspect of life, the IoTs, the artificial intelligence, the automations, the sensors, connected ecosystems will all actually drive every sector of economy. So the future growth in agriculture, the future growth in healthcare, the future growth in education will be technology driven by automation rather than by basically increasing productivities. At the same time, what we need to understand is that whereas Industry 1.0, when the machines came in the 16th and the 17th century, took 100 years or more to mature out, the Industry 2.0, with the evolution of electricity, took 60 to 70 years, and the industry 3.0, which was the computer age or the semiconductor age, took 30 to 40 years to unfold. It is seen that industry 4.0 will change the paradigm of economy in next 5 to 7 years. So the time period has shrunk immensely. So all the goods and all the ecosystem has to be brought into place in a very, very quick time. It requires innovation. It requires a huge amount of skilling or reskilling or upskilling. It requires solutions which are robust, low cost, and actually connected to the basic problems of every sector of economy. And if we look at the way innovation was driven by the Silicon Valley, it provided consumer a better experience. It provided them the new ways. It provided them the smartphones. It provided them the social media platforms. It provided them the e-commerce world. But it did not change the way a farmer is actually plowing his field and his basic life is changed. The way goods are being transferred from one place to other in an efficient way. All of this will be brought in by Industry 4.0. And if we understand that India is a storehouse of problems, and India is also a storehouse of educated, skilled manpower, then we have the biggest opportunity to encash in this Industry 4.0. The third important thing, what we need to understand is that India has been one of the fastest growing large economies. And we grew at 9%, but an average of 5 to 6% for the consistently, except for the 1 or 2 years of this present pandemic, at more than 5%, and have emerged as one of the largest growing economy. We aspire or we project ourselves to be a $5 trillion economy by 2025. What it does, what it changes, what it will actually create. When the economy is actually growing, so in any growth model, it is the belly which actually becomes fatter with the growth, and that's a normal way it goes. So what we will see is a huge ballooning or huge increase in the middle class population in this country. And it is expected that by 2025, when we are at $5 trillion economy, India will have more than 7 to 8 million middle class population with aspirations, with the zeal, and which the Chancellor with a demographic advantage, which is actually very eager, restless, and ready to integrate itself with the global ecosystem. It creates a huge consumer base. It creates an aspirations of the people which want everything and anything. And if we look at the size of this country, obviously we will need many solutions which are with India specific solutions which are low cost, robust, and able to reach the last person in this country. So these three ecosystems actually create a huge space in which we need to actually address our challenges for the future, and where there is a requirement that industry, academia, and the government come together to meet these present challenges. Now, what we have as our strengths to meet the challenges and why we feel confident that we can do it. India not only is a storehouse of India is on it. We have one of the largest skill base, which has proven itself through with the phenomenal growth of the IT sector. The IT sector from $200 million industry in 1992 has at present grown to around a $200 billion, 1,000% increase in the IT sector, employing more than 4.5 million people directly and a large 3 times of them indirectly. It is a sector which provides a white-collar job opportunity to the people. It is a sector which has shown that India is not only doing things which the West thought was trivial, but we are at the cutting edge of technology. We are cutting edge of providing solutions to the globally. And when the challenge came to this sector during the pandemic, when the global supply chains were disrupted, our IT sector stood up to these challenges. India had the capability to actually shift very quickly from physical premises to virtual premises. Work from home became a new norm in this country. And 95% of the Indian IT industry was actually operating during the severest of lockdowns in this country. And not a single data center across the globe, not a single capability centers, not a single operations of more than 4,000 clients, which the Indian IT sector provides, actually felt any disruptions. Whereas the manufacturing, the ships, the aircraft, the logistic industry had huge disruption. So that is the resilience that India has. That is the capability or the skill base that India has. What we need is to actually have a right set of policies, right set of interventions, where this skill set actually is able to meet the 3 challenges which I talked about earlier in my talk. And that is important to understand, that how do we actually create this ecosystem around this. And it is also important to understand that this ecosystem does not have to be stagnant. The way the technology is moving, the way the skill requirement is moving, it has to constantly upscale itself, constantly innovate, constantly change itself to meet the challenges of evolving ecosystem that will grow in the next 5 to 10 years. And that is very important to understand. At the same time, the innovation ecosystem does not remain the forte of the premier institutes or the premier research organizations, which is actually was thought of earlier. Today, India with a base of more than 60,000 startups, a country which has actually put in 2% of its GDP into research and development, and our researchers and scientists have proven themselves that they can provide solutions which are India-centric and low cost. But the challenge is that the translation of these solutions and technologies into commercial benefit of benefiting the common man has been a missing link, which the public research from academia as well as research do. And we need to think that can we do it differently to actually meet these challenges. That is also what we need to do. At the same time, the innovation ecosystem that is required has to be very different from the way the West actually thought of this ecosystem. We no longer have to actually replicate the models of the West or our neighbors in the East. We need to create our own solutions, which do not only provide a better quality of life and economy to India, but also is able to actually provide the connectivity and the digital or the technology experience to the rest 5.5 billion population, which actually missed out on the benefits that the Silicon Valley innovation brought in. Understand, the Googles and the Facebooks have only served the top 1.5 billion global population. Rest 5.5 to 6 billion people have still devoid of the experiences that these platforms bring in. And why I say India has an opportunity in this space to actually serve the whole 7.5 global population is because of the reason that, let me talk about my area of expertise, that is the digital, that we adopted a digitalization model which is very different from global models. Our experience with public funded digital platforms, whether it's Aadhaar, whether it's the UPI, or whether it's the present health stack or the digital health infrastructure that we are talking about, are very different from globally. We developed the largest digital identity database or ecosystem called the Aadhaar, or Unified Identity System. 1.27 billion population have a digital identity in this country. This number, or half this number, is not even applicable to any other 180 plus countries around the world. And we are the only country with such a huge digital identity. What it does, our digital identity built at a cost which is less than $1 per citizen. A digital identity which needs less than, which needs 7 paisa as expenditure for authentication, with an open API system able to integrate with every other application. So when a digital identity, a banking account, and a mobile phone come together, it changes the way life is. It brings out a solution which is robust, low cost, and which is created in no time with this ecosystem, this experience. At the same time, because we have a single digital layer, if you were talking about data as a new enabler for the future economy, it creates a single innovation layer which is democratized, which is not a proprietary ownership of one single entity, but it allows anyone and everyone to actually innovate over it and create a new solution. That's the beauty of the digital identity. Sir. The unified payment interface, what it did, it interconnected the traditional banking systems. More than 200 banks are connected to the UPI. It connected the mobile wallets. So every mobile wallet now gets connected to a UPI rather than giving a standalone experience. So it democratizes the mobile wallet ecosystem. In India, we have more than 20 to 22 mobile wallets, which is not an example. In most of the countries, either the Apple Pay or the Google Pay or the WhatsApp Pay are the platforms on which mobile wallet systems have. So that creates a huge monopolistic ecosystem. But in India, because of the UPI, it is far more democratized. A lot of players have chance. It creates a fintech ecosystem which can revolutionize the common man. It has the possibility to change the way our vendors, our small farmers, our small traders can get loans as working capitals for them, which was not there because they were not part of the formal banking systems. The UPI, it connects the mobile phones seamlessly. So the UPI is the biggest game changer in the fintech system. What it did, in India, the fintech ecosystem grew at more than 100% in the last 4 to 5 years, whereas the global average is around 8 to 10%. So there is a phenomenal growth. And if we understand that UK grew as an economy because London was the economic hub, or the banking or the financial capital of the world. Singapore grew in the East because Singapore emerged as the financial capital. New York grew because of it was a financial capital. So it grew because of the region, the financial. So if we have an opportunity in the fintech space because of the UPI, we have a lot to understand at what we can have to do to build this further and make India as the financial capital of the world in future. When the world faced the challenges because of the pandemic, I'll just give you an example of the COVID app, how it changed. Everyone says that, yes, India had a huge population. The biggest crisis because of the pandemic will come because of this population. But thankfully, we faced a far lesser distress as compared to what was expected in this country. The COVID app had 1.7 billion doses of vaccination already given in the last 7 months, unimaginable some 5 years back. But the COVID app, the way it handled the logistics, the way it handled the supply chain of vaccines beautifully, we have been able to handle the crisis that this pandemic brought us to us. The fastest way in which we provided vaccines to our citizens, an unimaginable expectation. I'm not talking about whether this government did or any other. I'm talking about how we as citizens, we as countrymen actually leverage technology to its fullest advantage. The startup ecosystem which this country has, it was always unimaginable that doing business in India was the most difficult task. And if we look at the 60,000 startups, India emerging as the third largest startup ecosystem, the second largest growth of unicorns in this country in the last 1 year, 46 plus unicorns came out of India. The startups have now started contributing 3 to 4% of our economy, and we expect to see them contributing 7 to 8% of the economy. And it's important to understand that how we are doing these things differently, correctly. The Indian startup story is very different from the Silicon Valley story, because many of our solutions actually provide large-scale market opportunities, are robust, low cost, and actually change the life of the last person on earth. And that's the beauty of Indian innovation. Now, what is if this is the present status of the economy, or if this is the advantage space in which India lives today, then what we need to do as a country, where innovation plays a key enabling role. First and the foremost, if we are talking about a $5 trillion economy by 2025, which means an average growth of around 10 or more % year on year. And in economic terms, many of you will be, I'm not, but many of you will be understanding economics better than that. Anything which is above 7% growth for a size of Indian economy. In economic models, it's called a disruptive growth, and not a sustainable model of growth. So if we are aspiring and we see a possibility that India grows on more than around 10% year on year, then we need to bring innovation as a key enabler for growth. And that is important to understand. If we want to have a forte in the industry 4.0, if we want to meet the challenges which this pandemic has brought in, and if we want to sustain the advantage which India had because of the largest skilled manpower and a demographic advantage, then we have to bring in innovation as a key enabling mechanism for future growth in all sectors of economy. And that is important. Now, how do we do that? How do we do things which is very different from the past that we had? The first and the foremost example I will give is that how do you connect the industry, academia, and the government together and twin together so that they are not acting as silos of road drivers, but become an integrated pillar for the growth. If we look at that, if academia creates the basic research, if industry brings in the growth or the commercialization, then how do we connect the industry and the academia together through some sort of a government intervention and a public-private partnership to actually interconnect them, that research flows into the industry? And this cannot be done and thought about with simply. We experimented with what we call as a technology incubation and development of entrepreneurs scheme. And we started in 2009 with the basic idea that researcher is part of commercialization or entrepreneurship ecosystem by which a research or an IP is converted into commercial benefits. 33 technology incubation and development of entrepreneur scheme through a government intervention was established in premier institutes of learning and research. More than 200 faculties and students from these institutes who have created the basic IP themselves became entrepreneurs or part of an entrepreneur journey. More than 400 companies emerged with the basic essence that the IP or the basic research comes from the institute or its infrastructure. Of the 400 entrepreneurs, a success rate in a startup ecosystem is around 10%. But in this journey of ours, we saw more than 38% success. More than 150 companies successfully graduated out. Government just spent 34 crores. And they till date, by the time they graduated from these academic institutes, brought in 450 crores as institutional or private funding. 3 of them are unicorns today. And this has been a huge success. We came up with a next generation scheme called the Tide 2.0, where we have established 51 centers and we are contemplating of increasing them to 100. Just that was a time when entrepreneurship in 2009 was still emerging in this country. In 2019, when we came with Tide 2.0, India has already established itself as a startup hub or an innovation hub through startups. This scheme had just started 2 years back. More than 300 entrepreneurs are already onboarded. The total valuation of these 300 entrepreneurs is more than 1,600 crores today. And we see there is a far greater success. So the point I'm trying to say is that academia industry relationship does not have to be through technology transfers, which have got the traditional models, but we need to create the right skill sets in our students, in our researchers, in our faculty, that they also create an entrepreneur, that zeal in themselves, and are able to create the great amount of IP or the knowledge that they have actually created into successful entrepreneur journey. Because let's understand, many of the IT sector giants of this country were not from traditional business families, but were techies or people coming from premier institutes in this country. So an institute like the Skilling Institute needs to think that how do we actually create the right set of skills in already educated or workforce, so that they also are able to bring in entrepreneurship ethos in themselves. Rather than they being job seekers, they translate themselves into job providers. The second important thing is that skilling has become the key central pillar on which this innovation journey and the challenges of the changing technology actually have brought in. If we talk about a fintech world, which is actually replacing the traditional financial models. So in a fintech world, you need to have the knowledge of financial sector. You need to have the knowledge of technology. You should be knowing a great amount of artificial intelligence skills, and all of them, and in plus the entrepreneurship zeal. All of them comes together to bring in the fintech sector. So you are better experts to understand what the future skilling in the fintech sector will require. And this is one sector. You talk about any sector, the healthcare, the logistics, every sector needs a skilling which is very different from the world for these sectors to actually mature out and become the key drivers of future economy. If we talk about the aspirations of our middle class, the 60 billion middle class that we will be having tomorrow, the aspirations will be twofold. First, to reap the benefits which technology or the evolving economy brings in. Second, to become the part and parcel of actually evolving this economy. So the skilling has to be to actually, if we are talking about technology, and talk about a farmer using IoT devices, using a smartphone for reaching to the market, using a smartphone to understand what the weather conditions will be, how the agriculture sector will evolve out tomorrow. How do I actually map my crops using the drones? Not simple for, if you imagine a farmer of today to understand it. He needs to be reskilled and upskilled to actually use all these technologies for his benefits. And how we do that needs to be understood. And health worker using technology, using telemedicine tools, using digital tools to transmit pathological data or other data, to retrieve the historical data of a patient. Now he needs to be savvy of many skill sets to be relevant in the healthcare sector. Anganwadi worker. How do you interconnect the whole of country where 22 languages and more than 400 dialects are prevalent? A person in Maharashtra serving the people in Tamil Nadu, where how does he use translation engines engines to actually transmit his knowledge through sign languages or through an intermediary. Very important to understand if you have to integrate the basic capabilities of this country. My point is that the skilling in this country needs to be very different. The skilling has to be not only for being provided to the bottom of the pyramid or the fourth layer of the economic layer, which is the worker layer, but it has to be actually integrated in every aspect of our economic ecosystem. We as policymakers, we as government officials need to be upskilled every day. We need to understand technology. The pandemic all of a sudden changed from our physical files to e-office system. More than 40 lakh or 50 lakh central government officials now need to understand how to create a file on a computer, how to navigate. I'm sure Dr. Ashwini Sharma will be understanding that how differently the world for a government official today is as compared to what 3 years back was. Not simple to do that, needs a lot of reskilling of government officials. So the opportunities in the skilling sector are enormous, but these opportunities have to be integrated with the changing economics and the changing paradigm of the innovation ecosystem that is there, and that is important to understand. If we look at our traditional parks, let me give you an example of software technology parks, which was actually brought in the whole IT revolution in this country for the first 5 to 8 years of their existence. In India, we have more than 60 software technology parks. Having more than 5 lakh square feet of innovation space. But if they keep serving the traditional industry, they will soon lose its relevance. I will request some of the faculties to actually visit the software technology parks of India in Pune and see that the challenges that are there to change the way the software technology parks of India were operating as compared to present industrial parks is huge. And what is the enormous amount of reskilling which is required to make them vibrant models of economic growth and bring them to their past glory which these parks had. A lot of opportunities in this space. We came up with the next generation incubation scheme. We have established center of excellences where IT is integrated with other sectors of economy. Take for example, the Motion, the center of excellence called Motion, which is there in STPI Pune, which integrates the IT sector, which is the strength of Pune, also to automobile sector, which is the second strength of Pune. We need to create a lot more of these farms. And Pune is not only has strengths in the IT or in the automobile, the pharma, the health tech. It excels in many fronts. We need to integrate or interconnect these economic models to bring in new paradigm. And when you are interconnecting them, you need to create those set of skills which seamlessly interconnects and creates economic benefits. NASSCOM came up with a future skill program where they aspired to train 10 lakh IT professionals to be upgraded to all the set of these new skill sets which are required. The model today is not only of standalone model. What the future skill does differently is that it brings in the strength of all the IT industry, which have been doing many such skillings in silos, and bringing the strengths of all this together into a future skill program being run centrally. It's a model of integration of skill sets. It's a model of integration of strengths rather than creating standalone systems. And that is important to understand. So in India today, skilling, what I mean to say is skilling is not what it used to be 5 years, 7 years. Skilling has now come on the forefront of an economic enabling ecosystem. It's not only formalizes our workforce or our labor class, but it also brings in the right set of skills in the upper strata of the working force to remain relevant on every time and any time in the changing paradigm. Because understand, it used to take a lifetime. If I started doing something when I came out of IIT, I can imagine to continue doing that for 40 years or 30 years of my working experience. But today, a person coming out of after his formal education can very soon in 5 years become irrelevant for any economic benefits that he can give to the society, to his company, to his organization, even to an academic institute. A faculty needs to upskill every day if he has to remain relevant. And he cannot force his own old ideas on the students anymore. Neither they are ready to hear it, nor it will bring any benefits to the system. The education sector is going through a huge journey. The way the education sector has increased in length and breadth, the government standalone does not have the capability to make such an ecosystem, which we did in the first 40 years since independence. Now, the public-private partnership in growing the needs of the present needs of the educational sector is very important. At the same time, it is also important to understand the economic models of these educational institutes. They cannot only survive on fees from students or from government grants, which was a traditional model. They need to rethink and re-evolve themselves. They have to bring in an element where a substantial portion of their earnings emerges out of an industry connect they develop, whether it is through a startup ecosystem, whether it is through technology transfers, whether it is through upskilling the industry for the needs of the future. Any of these models or all of these models itself have to bring in a substantial revenue to such educational institute. And so they need to reimagine themselves. A faculty does not have to be an eminent scholar, but he needs to be a combination of an eminent scholar, a innovative entrepreneur, and a good human skills to connect with the common man. A huge change in which the faculties have to reimagine themselves for the future. That is important, and that is very important. In the last, what I will try to say is that, because I've said enough, I think we can have a small session where I can actually think and we can discuss some model. That the economic ecosystem of the future needs to be very different. Skill, innovation, and interconnections will be the key drivers for this. And we need to imagine that how do we bring such models? In MIGHTY, we thought that how do we actually interconnect the academia, the government, the traditional industry and the startup ecosystem together, and we came up with the idea of the MIGHTY Startup Hub, which brings in all these skill sets together to make innovation as a key driver for future. And this MIGHTY Startup Hub, I'll request you that you can visit the site mightystartuphub.in, is a new model of interconnections that we are driving. And I think that your university will also bring in your strength into the MIGHTY Startup Hub, where you actually make us imagine the new models. The challenges which we are facing is that if India needs to grow the startup ecosystem, then we need more than 5,000 incubators, more than 200 accelerators, a large investment ecosystem. Now, if you have seen an incubator, normal incubator, we do not have even the right skill sets for managing an incubator. How do we actually bring in? How do we bring in quantitative analysis of the quality of a startup, whether it has the right skills to make an economic difference or not? Whether the industry, investor, or the government should actually intervene to actually support him, or we need to do something to bring in a change in that process. Many of these, there are huge number of skilling challenges, I think, which with your expertise will be able to address it. And I'm sure the future, I look forward to a partnership with you and working closely. Thank you for giving me this opportunity. Look forward to some questions or a healthy discussion for a remaining time that we have. Thank you.
Thank you very much, sir. It was a great disposition and exposition of ideas. Now the forum is open for questions. Should anyone have any questions, you may please raise your hand so that we can thereafter request the speaker to take on your questions.
Sir, first of all, thank you so much for your talk. My name is Raghavan and I'm from the Logistics and Supply Chain Management Department. So thank you first of all for speaking a lot about how technology is playing a critical role in the area of supply chain management and how artificial intelligence and other technologies are impacting the same. I wanted your thoughts on what are some of the initiatives probably your ministry is working in making India the artificial intelligence hub for the supply chain management.
So let's understand what is artificial intelligence brings in. It brings in where the machine is able to actually take decisions to bring in efficiency in many of the sectors of economy. So the artificial intelligence program which the government of India has actually came out with, the artificial intelligence national program on artificial intelligence, has three basic ingredients. The first is that how does artificial intelligence, the use of artificial intelligence changes the basic quality of life of our citizens. How artificial intelligence can actually impact the core sectors of our economy. The Gati Shakti program, which the government of India recently launched, will have a lot of interventions of artificial intelligence that will be there. The principles on which artificial intelligence is built upon are the core principles of ethics and responsible AI. These are the core principles on which the artificial intelligence model is being built upon. The basic ethos is that of an artificial intelligence model of Government of India, which is different from many global models, is that we are trying to bring in a common data layer, or we are creating 100 sandboxes or data sandboxes on which innovation in this space can be done. So what we thought that till the time we democratize data, India or an Indian ecosystem will have limited opportunities in this space. So we have actually provided a democratic way to enable data provision. And that is, we are trying to build all our public digital platforms so that they can have a seamless connect to AI.
Thank you so much, sir.
Any other questions from the audience? Yeah, any questions from the seminar hall? Students of first and second year, any questions from your side?
No, sir. Sir, the student has a question.
If industries like Tesla, Google are planning to share their technology and business model in India, are they doing it?
Deepak, can you take off your mask and repeat the question?
I got that. What is he saying is that whether these proprietary digital platforms like Google's and the Facebook's will be sharing their technology with India. Let me, now this gives me an opportunity to talk about the global perspective. So I'll take a little longer time. The perspective with regards to like technology is not only a key enabler, which what I talked about in my last earlier intervention was that data is now an important enabler. Cross-border data flows have become an important tool of negotiation between countries. And many of these have become very important. All of the earlier or the industry 3.0 platforms, which I call them as proprietary digital platforms or proprietary platforms, had models where they wanted to bring everything and anything onto a single platform getting interconnected. So if Google was there, it started with a search engine. It has its own payment gateway. It has its own mobile phone. It has its own storage systems. And you talk about any technology, whether in the digital space or the non-digital space, these proprietary digital platforms are trying to actually make them their monopolistic ecosystem. So that is what is of concern or a huge concern to global economy. And we need to understand that they will never be ready to share technology because they are IP holders. They are monopolistic players on this. We need to challenge them. We need to create alternatives where they don't give it voluntarily, but they are forced to give it to make themselves relevant in whatever geography or economy they are operating. So what you wanted to say is that whether they are ready, they will never be ready, but we have to make them ready through our differential economic models. And that's where the advantage of our proprietary digital platforms will come in tomorrow. Now, India is negotiating 5 FTAs right now. Data sharing is a key concern for all these, whether it's UK, Canada, Australia, US, Japan, all these major economies, because we are one of the largest data repositories of the world. I talked about 70 crore people coming into the middle class layer. We did a lot of work on increasing the connectivity, the large educated workforce, the huge digitalization that happened. So we have become one of the largest storehouse of data. But how do we leverage that data for our own economic advantages? That we need to understand. So we need to fast grow our innovation ecosystem so that we do not actually lose the data advantage that we have. Thank you.
Sir, one question from my side. As a ministry, you have taken an initiative to ensure that the data of Indian residents remains in the country. I would like to know how far we have reached there and whether Amazons and all these people, all these big giants, have they been able to, or we have been able to convince them to show the data of Indians within the country? Because the cross-border data flow was always a problem and will always remain a problem because many countries are not part of enlightened. So may I get your views on this?
This also needs a little extended. The data can be safely divided into 2 basic buckets: personal data and a non-personal data, which is a corporate data. At the same time, there is an issue of who owns the data, whether the data belongs to the provider or the data belongs to the seeker, right? If I give my personal data to Amazons or the Googles, who has the basic ownership rights over this data? The third important thing is the intermediary liabilities of many of these intermediary platforms. So with regard to India, we are coming up with our on national data, we are coming up with the Personal Data Protection Act. The act has been formulated. It will be, the DC has given its report, the Joint Parliamentary Committee, and I hope that very soon we will be coming with a Personal Data Protection Act of ours, which clearly mandates what are the responsibilities of the various data. Seeking of a provision must for its use and reuse of such data, which is the basic central line of this bill. As far as the non-personal data is concerned, there has been an expert committee formed. It has to be a combination of legal enabling mechanisms as well as strategies to actually have have a significant control over the non-personal data. So I think
Thank you, sir. Thanks a lot for the clarification. Any other questions from anyone of the audience?
Hello, sir. Can blockchain be a revolutionary technology in securing personal data? Can blockchain be a revolutionary technology to secure personal data?
Yeah.
So the question from Devansh was that can the blockchain become an enabling technology for securing personal data?
Definitely. I request you to come up with a feasible solution. It has integrated, so it's not only a solution to create cryptocurrencies, but it has got a lot more advantages in other fields of technologies or other fields, economic fields.
Thank you very much, sir. So today, what we have learned from you is the role of.
We have one more question.
Sorry.
So for developing country like us, whether our currency should go down just as Japan or our currency should go up like just as US? And another question, what are your views on virtual real estate?
I think if you talk about the currency, we need to leave the currency to an independent regulator called the central bank. And they are the best experts to actually give a discourse on currency. My views on virtual reality, yes, it's a technology of the future. It's a need of the hour in the pandemic situation. So if you have to buy a car, you will be scared to go to a dealer shop. Rather, you will like to have a virtual, you like to have a dealer experience sitting on your computer. So this is a technology which has got a huge amount of capability. We say that there will be a $50 to $60 billion industry evolving around the virtual reality space.
Sir, today what we have learned from you is the role of innovation and scaling in countries' growth trajectory. You have also alluded to scaling model, which should become India oriented and which should not ape the Western ideas in that. Also, you have talked about synergy between pillars of academia, industry, government. You mentioned about how India is middle class, which is aspirational and driven, and it's ready to break out, how that can be leveraged to turn India into a 5 trillion economy through various initiatives. You have talked about next generation incubation centers. The most important part that you've covered is both for the faculty and the students that we have to upskill ourselves. We have to jettison the old models and adopt and adapt to the new models. Also, you mentioned that the education sector has to re-evolve and connect with the industry. I remember your ministry has a very good initiative, which is a broadband forum, which I was a part of for some time, for almost about 3 years, wherein you were asking the technology, also the academia, whenever they came up with the projects, they had to align an industry partner, then only the project was approved. So I'm sure that we can gain from your experience and your expertise in this regard, and we as a university will definitely like to approach you with some projects that we can think of. I'm sure we'll get your help in that also.
Thank you.
So thank you very much, sir. And now I'll request Dr. Gauri to extend a vote of thanks to the eminent speaker.
Very good afternoon, sir. It was really a privilege to have you today with us on this platform. On behalf of Symbiosis Skills and Professional University, and also on behalf of Institutions Innovation Council of Symbiosis Skills and Professional University, I am here to extend our heartfelt gratitude for you to accept our invitation and be here taking out time from your extremely busy schedule and still enlightening us with your insightful talk. We are a very young institutions innovation council of a skills university, and we are very proud to let you know that we have recently received 4-star rating from the Ministry of Education for our Innovation Council. We are trying to put in a lot of efforts to establish an innovation and entrepreneurship ecosystem in the university and encourage our students to come up with new ideas, innovative ideas and their startups. And we would be really honored and privileged if we get support from your side, and we would like you to help us out and support us in our venture when it comes to entrepreneurship and innovation. And once again, thank you so much, and please let us know how we can approach you, and I hope we would take it ahead. And,
Definitely, you have my number, you have my email. I'm approachable anytime. It was a pleasure talking to all of you. Thank you once more.
Thank you so much. Thanks a lot.
Thank you. Jane.
Thank you.